All right, good afternoon, friends. My name is David. I'm the Director of Education here at Signature Theater. So happy to have you all here for this month's event. For those of you who haven't been to one of these before, it's a pretty simple format. I'll share a couple of announcements, and then I'll introduce our special guest for today. And if at any point you have a question, my friends here in person, just raise your hand good and high, and we'll call on you at an appropriate moment. And for our friends at home, if you have a question at any time, just throw those comments into the chat, and a staff member will pass those questions on to us at an appropriate moment. Before we introduce the guests, a couple of announcements. Today we'll be talking a lot about Primary Trust. That closes on October 20th. Out of curiosity, those of you in person, who here has seen the production so far?
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Great. And who here has not seen it yet? Come on. Good. That's what I like to hear. Okay. Excellent. So you've got through the 20th to see that. I finally saw it on Tuesday, and it's beautiful. Opening not long after that closes in the Max. We've got a funny thing happen on the way to the Forum. Can't wait for that. And then next month's Inside Signature, we're not quite ready to announce who the guest is, but it will be on November 7th, and we look forward to having you back with us then. So we have with us today Julius Thomas III. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. This is actor morning.
Yeah, right. Excuse me, you're in Primary Trust right now, and that is, it's a show about a lot of things. On one level, it's a show about a man and his evolving relationship with his hometown. What's your hometown? Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Gary, Indiana.
We can sing it, yeah. Yes, someone is singing it. Yes. And
that's home.
I love it. And where's home now? Where are you living these days permanently?
Well, I live in that old place called New York City.
Yeah. Okay.
That little chestnut.
And I know you've toured a lot. Have any of your tours gone through Indiana? Have you gotten to bring it back home?
Oddly enough, no. There are a few places. I'm up to about 46 of the states I've visited and performed in most of them. Indiana was not one up until recently. I went and did a little regional theater there just so I could perform for my
That's awesome. Good for you.
folks. So I could invite my whole family to come out and see things. Yeah.
And they all come? Yeah.
They did.
That's
They did.
great.
We had an army. It was amazing.
I love that. And were your parents, I'm assuming growing up in Gary, Indiana, they were not show business people, or were they?
No, not show business people, but both of my parents are musical. My dad is an amazing singer and plays the organ. My mother plays the piano.
Beautiful.
And we all did all kinds of manner of things in church with music and things of that nature. So it's definitely in our blood.
So that's great. So what was the music playing in your home growing up? What were you all listening to in your home?
Lots of gospel.
Yeah.
But the lens through which I fell in love with music was the Jackson 5. Because, Gary, Indiana, we lived on Jackson Street.
Wow.
I had some of the same teachers growing up, and they sort of, I don't sing in this play, but singing is my main thing that I do, oddly enough. So a lot of my life seemed to parallel a young Michael for me. So I was very much in love with the J5, Motown, and lots of R&B.
I love it. I love it. And then how did you fall into performing yourself?
Well, I did it in high school as a in-between of track and cross country.
Okay.
As a reason to not go home every day when those seasons weren't happening and just sit at home. And choir and things of that nature, singing was sort of the thing that I loved to do growing up. So those came sort of naturally. But I didn't really get into theater and performing until I got into high school.
Okay.
And we did our first, they started a program my freshman year with musicals. And my first show was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Perfect.
And I got to play Joseph, and I was bitten by the bug. And it sort of spiraled from there. But, I didn't initially go away to school to be a performer.
Okay, so there were other career goals then.
There were.
What were the plans?
I was actually on a full scholarship for biology to be a physical therapist. I had a run-in with a physical therapist. I got injured as a kid in the 6th grade and had to go to physical therapy, and she sort of changed my life. You experience something like that where someone rehabilitates you and helps you and spends a whole lot of time with you and talks to you about their profession, and then it becomes attainable. It seems like something that can happen for you. And I fell in love with it. And so I went to school with the intent of being a physical therapist. And halfway through, I hated everything about it. I was a biology major, and I was acing everything except for biology. I got a D the first time I took it, a C the second time I took it, and said I should probably be doing better than this in my major. So then the journey became like, what do I want to do? What am I gonna do in this life? And the goal was always to help people and to rehabilitate people and to touch people in some way. And the national tour of Rent came to my school, and I went on a whim. I didn't know much about this show. This was before I really cared very, very deeply about educating myself about theater. I knew my 4 little Andrew Lloyd Webber shows that we did in high school, and that was about it. And I went and sat, and I noticed that people in seats just like you were laughing and crying and having this cathartic moment. And I said, these actors are working on people.
Yeah.
And it's not the way that I thought that I would be rehabilitating and touching people, but I have experience with this, and I think I could do this.
Yeah.
And I dropped my full scholarship, moved halfway across the country, switched schools, and probably scared my parents half to death. But it's worked out.
Were they supportive of the switch?
They were supportive. Yes, they were supportive in the way that I never heard a peep as to whether or not they were worried.
Okay.
I'm sure they had to be. I mean, a full scholarship, a career that had really sort of a solid base under it. I was headed towards being almost a doctor. So I'm sure there was probably something, but they never let me know about it. And after they came to see my first performance at my new school, which is Wichita State University, which I will always shout out.
I lived in Kansas for a bit. I love it.
Yes, cool. After they came to see my first performance there, my dad pulled me aside and he said, I know now that I don't have to worry about you because I can see by what you just did that you're a professional.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a real turning point. It was a real moment.
So jumping back to when you were doing Joseph in high school, you said the bug bit you.
Yeah.
What made you fall in love with all of this, and what made you turn to it later? What did you love about it?
Well, I mean, in order to do this, I think you have to have a little bit of narcissism in you somewhere. And there is something very magical about the instant gratification of doing a job and then having someone stand up and applaud after you're finished.
Yeah.
Doctors don't even get that, It's like I don't even know how to describe it other than to say it just feels so wonderful to do something and have people appreciate it. It's like cooking a good meal and then having people like clean their plates. I know that probably some of you in here who like to cook like me can understand that like you made this thing, and someone else is consuming it and loves it, and it's a wonderful feeling.
I love that. So you go to school. What's the first gig out of school?
The first gig out of school was Lyric Theater of Oklahoma.
Great.
All through college, after I transferred and majored in musical theater, was Music Theater of Wichita in Wichita, Kansas, which is where I did a lot of my training. And then Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, I did 2 shows for the summer.
Great.
And then I moved to Chicago and wanted to be close to home again, and started auditioning as a professional actor. And the first show that I ended up booking was the Chicago sit-down of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And I ended up doing that show for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Chicago, the national tour. I paid off my student loans. Told Sally Mae to kick rocks and never call me again. It was
Yes.
It was a blessing, a true blessing, that show.
Amazing. And you've done a lot of tours.
7
national tours.
7 national tours.
So I'm guessing most of us in this room have not been on a national tour before. Walk us through what that's like, how it works. Tell us about the touring life.
Yeah, well, it starts with a storage space in New York where you shove all of your life into it except for what you're going to take on tour with you, and you try to fit your life into 2 bags and a road box that the theater or the company will travel for you. and you just move from place to place and you encounter a new audience. I've toured through DC several times now and played the National a couple of times with different shows. It is a skill, and it's something that you have to learn to fall in love with.
Okay.
But it's also a way to see the world on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I loved the most about it, was
Yeah.
that during my time off, I would hop up and go see a national park, and I didn't have to pay to go across the country. Like I said, I've been to 45, 46 states now. I'm like always on the fence about one. Did I go to this one? Montana is the one that I'm like, have I been to Montana? I cannot remember. I know I haven't played there because there are no big touring houses there. But it's wonderful, and it can be a way to put money away and to sustain yourself and be able to sit still for a while after you get done. It's a way to see the world. It's a way to hone your craft in different markets that view art very differently.
Yeah.
Because different things play very differently in different places.
And that's one of my questions. Like, are audiences the same, or?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. A very, I don't know, how can I even put this? Sort of like, I don't know how to describe the kind of humor that's in a 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, but there are certain places where it plays a lot more funny, and a lot of places where people are like, they're kind of tilting their head going, what are we watching? Right. Why are these kids talking about this? It's
totally.
So different things play in different places, and you have to learn to roll with those punches and still be confident in the material and do what it is that you have to do.
Yeah. You've played Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Tell us
once or twice.
Yes. Tell us your Hamilton story.
Oh, my Hamilton story. So it's very long. I'll try to condense it. Okay. But I did the show for about 5 years. Yes. Before I ended up booking the show, I auditioned for it close to 15 times. Meaning I went into the audition room for this character or this character, and then over the course of 3 auditions, they decided maybe this isn't the character for you. I first started for Lafayette when Daveed Diggs, the original gentleman, was leaving, so that was the first character that I went in for. Okay. And I went in maybe 2 or 3 times, and that wasn't a fit. And then they brought me in for Aaron Burr, which was the character that I knew I was right for. Yeah. And that went to 2 or 3 times, and that wasn't a fit on their end. On through all of the major male characters until I got down to Hamilton, and I originally at that point I said no. I didn't want to go in for Hamilton because I didn't feel like it was right. Tommy Kail, who was the director of the show, had been bringing me in for lots of projects. He did Grease live. Did you all see Grease live when they did it? I believe it was on Fox or something like that. Yeah. And he was just starting to blow up in a way that was like, this man's going to be everywhere. And it's getting too easy for him to pass me up for gigs. He keeps bringing me in. He likes me. But every time it's like, oh, not quite right for that. Not quite right for that. Let's try you for this. Not quite right for that. And so I said, the next time I go in for this man, I want it to feel perfect. I want to know it's for me. I want to know that this is the role that I'm going to book with this guy so that he can get in the habit of booking me and not passing me by. And so when Hamilton came up, I said no. And everyone in my corner was like, Julius, what are you doing? Absolutely not. I get it that you've been in for all the other men in Hamilton, but just go. And I eventually had to get over myself and go. And oddly enough, it was the thing that stuck. It was the thing that they saw me as, even though I didn't see myself as. And it was a journey that has changed my life. How I view my art, what I view as my strengths. I didn't get to sing a lick in that show. And singing has always been the thing that people have hired me for. So here somebody is offering me the role of an actor. Yeah. He raps, but I'm not a rapper. I grew up with singing as my thing. And so it just sort of changed the trajectory, and it is ultimately what prepared me to be here for Primary Trust, because I never would have started auditioning for plays had I not been successful in a role that didn't allow me to sing. Wow. No, that makes total sense. Yeah. Hamilton, I only want to linger on Hamilton for another minute or two. But talk about it. It's, one of maybe 3 mega hits that's happened in my lifetime, Wicked, Rent, and Hamilton, right?
What is it like being part of this phenomenon, and why do you think it has hit people the way it has?
Well, I'll start with the first one, what it's like to be a part of a phenomenon. It's daunting, it's wonderful. While you're in it, I don't necessarily think you can appreciate it in the way that once you step away from it, you can go, holy geez, I was the biggest role in the theatrical world. I just played the biggest role for over 2.5 years as the character, and then 2.5 years as the standby for the character. I wasn't able to appreciate it in the way because it's hard. It's the hardest. It's one of the hardest things. This is also one of the hardest things I've ever done. But Hamilton is maybe the hardest thing that I've ever done in my career. And in that moment, you're kind of like, am I going to make it through today's show? Is today going to be the day that my ability doesn't rise to the cake bake? And so 5 years of that can sort of, both strengthen you and also make you a little neurotic.
Yeah, totally.
So it's wonderful. It was challenging. I look back on it now with such fondness, and to be able to say that I was a part of something that changed the theatrical landscape is huge. It's huge. Now the other part,
why do you think this is one that has become what it has? Why do people connect to this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people that look like me, people of color, react to it because it's one of the first shows that has allowed us to sort of step into history and not play the specific role that we've been doled out in history. I get to be a part of the legacy of America in a way that does not feel depressing, or downtrodden or traumatic, and we were here too. We were here too, and so seeing ourselves in a light that everybody else gets to see themselves in is super important, and I heard that from lots of kids across the country, and that was really wonderful. I think it's taken the rest of America by storm because it's genius.
It is.
It's brilliant, and it touches on history in a way that we aren't necessarily going to go get from a book, and it also humanizes and brings down off of a pedestal these men who did an amazing thing but were also flawed. They were just men. They did an amazing thing, but they were also human. And that's a thing that I think that we forget in the lore of history. And so to see them in this light, messing up and being just as messy as we are in our daily lives is a thing that we can relate to in a way that we can't as the founding fathers on a pedestal, These are men who did something amazing, and it sets the tone for us to also do amazing things in our lives. If they can do it and they were flawed and messy, so can I.
I love that.
Why not?
Yeah. Love that. Questions, Barbara?
Yeah, this is a three-parter, so I'll make it real quick. You said that you didn't think you were right for Alexander or Hamilton. I wanted to know, eventually, did you think you were right for it? And two, when you were in Oklahoma, did I hear Oklahoma?
Yes.
Okay. At the Lyric, was Michael Barron there then? And what's up next for you?
Okay, so first question, I got to repeat these for folks at home. So first question was, did you end up feeling like you were right for the part of Hamilton? Second question was, did you work with Michael Barron down in Oklahoma? Third question was, what's coming up after this?
I'll answer the second one first because that's the fastest. No, it was Nick Demas at the time, who was the artistic director who gave me my first job out of college. Shout out to Nick Demas. Yes, I did end up feeling like Hamilton was right for me eventually. There was a fieriness about the character. I'm very subdued. I'm very even-keeled and easygoing. And the reason that I thought that I was more of a Burr is because his whole song is wait for it. In my career, the trajectory has been sort of like going up a roller coaster. It's been slow and steady. When getting to leading man from being an ensemble member, and I haven't pushed and hit my head up against a wall like a lot of my peers who have, done some really fantastic things. And so my trajectory feels more like a Burr. My life feels more like a Burr. But there was something about Hamilton, once I really dug in and figured it out, that like that fire is deep within me too. I just choose to share it in a different way. So I did end up feeling like it was right for me. And then the last one was?
The last one was what's coming up after this show, if you're allowed to say.
I can't say what exactly it is yet because it hasn't been announced. You know, just like this theater would I would get in trouble if I announced that I was coming to do Primary Trust before the big press event came out. But I'm headed up to Connecticut to do a show that I've never done before. It's Golden Age of Broadway, which is a genre I've never done before.
Cool.
So it's a season of firsts for me, a season of new, which I'm excited for.
I love that. Any other questions? Yes, David.
What you do in Primary Trust is amazing.
Thank you.
And the play, you've got 3 superb castmates.
Oh.
But the play rests on your shoulders and on the shoulders of your character. And you said just a little bit ago when you were talking about doing Hamilton that this current play, Primary Trust, where you're acting and not singing, was something that was a tremendous challenge for you. So I'd like to find out from you a little bit about how you compare doing a dramatic play, which doesn't have singing, and then seeing that in the context of what you've done for most of your career, which is to appear in musicals with singing roles.
Yeah, so you've mentioned that this a play is somewhat new territory for you. Mm-hmm. Talk about stepping into this new territory of plays.
At its core, when you look at theater, it is quite similar. Plays and musicals, they're similar, but they're also really different. There is a weight that the music and the choreography that can carry emotionally that we just don't have on stage here at night. It's very raw, it's very laid bare, it's very exposing. If a moment isn't going well, we can't just pull a double pirouette and have everybody forget about it. You know, like we have to sort of work out that moment and get back into the emotion of it. And this play is specifically challenging, and the one of the reasons why I said it's one of the harder things that I've done. It's 90 minutes, which is great and lovely. We love a short show. But with Hamilton, what I'd say is that if ever, you know, I still get stage fright. I still get terribly nervous every time I step out onto the stage. And with Hamilton, I've got a sea of other people for everyone to look at. Mm-hmm. And also moments where other people are speaking or singing a song in which I can either step off stage or not know that I'm not the focal point and don't have a line coming up, that I can gather my thoughts and say, okay, Julius, get it together. That last scene was terrible. Stop thinking about what you're gonna have for dinner. I know you're hungry. And get back into this scene, you know? And with this show, there isn't a moment for that. There's maybe a couple of sentences between every line that I have on the but it's really 78 pages of me talking constantly. And so in the very beginning, you know, and there's also an added element with this specific show of speaking directly to the audience.
Yeah.
You are our fifth character. And so you can look out into the audience and there can be all manner of things going on that can take your attention for a moment, even for a moment. I mean, because we're human, and when we notice that something is happening, we notice something is happening, and you go, oh, that person is waving at me, you know? and then you have to take that moment and go, okay, well, they're waving at Kenneth and not at Julius,
Yeah.
and how does Kenneth want to respond to that? And by the time you think of that, maybe 3 lines have gone by.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a particular challenge with this show specifically, but it's a wonderful challenge because it makes me have to start at the beginning of the play and not let up until we're done. And not let up until the moment I take my last bow. And that is a challenge that I have not had before. And also not being able to rely on the crutches of music and dance, which can sort of bear some of the weight of the emotion, is also a thing that is very different, and those are the biggest challenges. This is only my second play, y'all. And the first one I was I did out at Berkeley, and I was a supporting character that had maybe 2 or 3 scenes. So we went from a little bit to a lot of it real quick.
Can I do a quick follow-up?
Please, David.
What drew you to this?
Yeah.
when it was offered to you, you could have said, hell no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why did you want to do
What
primary
challenged
trust?
you to take this up?
Because it scared the crap out of me.
Good.
Can I say crap?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yes, you can say whatever you want.
Because it scared me to death. In order for us to grow, we have to be uncomfortable. And our director, Taylor Reynolds, talked very much about, in our rehearsal process, about being in the chrysalis and reshaping yourself and reforming yourself and how uncomfortable that can be. But on the other end of it, you come out as this whole other entity. And in order for me to get where I want to get, which is to be able to touch every facet of the entertainment business, I want to say that I have done music well, been a comparable actor, been very good at dance, done all of the things. This is one of the things that I have to tackle and conquer. And in order for me to do that, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Now, on that level, yes. Also, the material is beautiful.
Yeah.
The material is just absolutely beautiful, and it's so rare that we get to see a black man who is 38 in the show give you a slice of his life and not have to have anything traumatic happen.
Yeah.
No trauma happened to him. He is not bleeding from the ear or anything. You know, someone has passed away, but you know, this happened a long time ago. So we're not dealing with the trauma in time. And to have him work out his stuff in real time, that it's so rare for a piece like this to be around. And so when I saw this, I was like, yes, absolutely.
I love it.
It scares me, and let's do it. And thank you, Signature, for letting me.
Yes. Yeah, we got a question from online.
So we have two online questions. I'm going to start with this important one first. Does Julius actually like Mai Tais?
Do you like Mai Tais?
I do.
How important is lived experience with development characters in a production? How did that inform this?
Okay, so how necessary is lived experience for playing a role, and did it play a role in this show?
For me personally, it is paramount. The only thing I have to go on is my own experience. I start every character from how would Julius react in this situation, and then I grow the character from there. My Hamilton was even the same way. I've tried other methods in which I read a lot of research and do a lot of pulling from different places and trying to pull in other, but for me, that felt like a hat on a hat. It felt so much further from the honest truth of a thing. And for me, I think that the way that I stay very honest and true to whatever is going on in the storyline is to just react to it in the way that I would.
Yeah.
And my mother is still with us, thank God.
Yes.
I have never been through the things that Kenneth has been through, but I have had loss in my life. And so I can pull from the loss of my grandmother, who was my biggest champion. And I can pull from, I don't know what it's like, you know, in other things where I've had to play like let's say like someone who has to fight someone or murder or something to that effect. I don't know what it's like to want to do those things, but I do know what it's like to want to kill a mosquito.
Yeah, totally.
And you build, and that seems so silly, but in that moment, that bloodlust, if you will, is so real, and you can pull from those moments in a way that I think that I have found is more real for me than trying to create something that I don't know about.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Please.
How do you prepare each time you go on stage for this production?
So what are you doing before you go on stage for Primary Trust?
Yeah, so it is because we've only been running it now for I think 3 weeks. Have we been at it for about 3 weeks?
Yeah.
It is still a process that's in flux. 2 weeks ago, when we were still very fresh and new and still lines were more of a struggle to come by in the moment, I would touch every line of the show before every performance. So before you saw me get on stage and say all these lines, I will have said them at least twice the day of, the morning before. I would run the show in my apartment. So sorry to my neighbors. You know, that is the main thing for me in this one, is just like touching the emotion and touching each line so that they feel like they are not foreign to me when they come out of my mouth on stage. Because again, there's so much stimulus on stage. There are lights and there are, waving and and things of that nature that can distract you. So I just want to make sure that I'm first and foremost ready to say the words that Eboni Booth has written on the page, and secondly, to touch the emotion in a way that that feels real. So,
I love it. Yeah, please.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to perform on a small stage like this versus a Broadway?
Talk about the Arc versus a Broadway stage or a touring house. And again, like you said, you're talking to us a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's it is magical and scary and wonderful all at the same time, because you're so close. You're in the action with us, and I've enjoyed it. And also, it terrified me in the beginning because I have to look into your eyes. With a proscenium stage, with the Broadway stages, you might be able to see the first or second row. There is a way to sort of block out and put up the fourth wall that we talk about so much by just, sort of directing your attention away from that, or only looking out into the black void, missing those first two rows, which you can do very easily because you're taught as a theater actor that you look here and not here. You're playing to the back row. So it's very easy to sort of let the audience disappear in that way. In this, there's no hiding. It's all very bare and very, very raw, and it's a wonderful challenge. So I think those are the big differences for me, is that like there's no hiding and there's no sort of disappearing. Everything is on display.
It's great. Barbara,
I
please.
just wondered if your family had been able, any of your family members had been able to come and see the show.
Your family come to see the show?
My family hasn't come to see this one yet. I don't know that they'll make this one. They try to come as much as they do, but coming from Gary, Indiana is a little tough at times.
It's so good.
It's one that they, especially after our delightful reviews, that they are sort of kicking themselves about not being able to make, but they come to so many things, and I've been in hundreds of shows, and they saw Hamilton 5, 6, 7 times, and so I understand every once in a while when they don't get to come in this direction, but they're my biggest supporters, so they hear all about it anyway.
Please.
I was wondering, what is your method for memorizing all this dialogue?
Okay. How do you memorize all those lines?
Yeah, repetition. Like I said, I will, especially on a Tuesday after we've had a day off. Now that we're 3 weeks in, I will definitely just go through all the lines at least on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I'll at least hit all of my monologues before we go on stage. On Wednesday, I'll do the same, and then, on Thursday, I'll do the same. And then as we get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I feel pretty good about it. But in the beginning, it is literally just making sure that I read through the play as many times as I can. And then from there, we highlight, and all of those things help to just begin to shape the world of what's coming next. And then you get specific on the words and the lines and the things of that nature, so that you go through and you go, oh, I said do instead of the. Okay, so go back and do, and play it like 3 or 4 times before we get to the right thing. And then I'll go back to the top and then start back over. It's a lot. It's a lot of repetition, and it's my least favorite thing. It's my least favorite thing. I'm always so excited once I know a thing, because then we can get to the fun part, which is to give some life to it.
That's great. Yes, please.
You mentioned earlier that you still get stage fright, which is very shocking to me. You seem very calm. How do you overcome it? How do you perform?
How do you overcome the stage fright? Or do you?
No, it's a thing that, and even when I talk to young performers, stage fright is just something that happens. It's a scary thing that we do, to step out on stage and lay yourself bare. And in the world of theater, anything can happen at any time. My first time going on for Hamilton, I don't know if you all have seen the show on Disney Plus or whatever, we have 2 turntables in the center of the stage that go in different directions. Well, the first time I'm on, both of those break. And so we have to go into contingency land, which there's a whole rehearsal for, but I haven't had that rehearsal yet. And even if I did, we only do it once, and it's like, you know, what do you do? So, you know, it can be quite terrifying, and anything can happen, and you have to take those fears and those things that make your heart beat fast and turn it into whatever emotion you're getting ready to walk out onto the stage with. For this play specifically, you know, Kenneth is a shy, inward person who does not do well at speaking with large crowds, so it's very useful for me to be nervous at the top of the show, because that's what Kenneth is. And so when y'all see me up there getting ready to go through those monologues, a lot of times those are real nerves. But as the show moves on, you settle in, your heart rate lowers, and you begin to fall into the mental space, and you do the thing that it is that you know what to do. And the more that you do it, the less it becomes, but it always stays with you. So you just have to learn how to use it.
Question from online, please.
Did you see the New York City production of Primary Trust?
Did you see the New York production?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
They're wondering if that informed it.
I did see it. I went to there's a wonderful resource for actors in New York, the Performing Arts Library. All the shows in New York, off-Broadway or Broadway, are filmed and put into an archive in the Lincoln Center Theater. And so as long as a show is closed, you can go and watch it one time in your life to have a reference or for research or things of that nature. And it's a wonderful resource for any performers out there who are looking for a way to see old shows. And I went to see it because this show is so interesting script-wise. All of the things that you hear, all the sound cues are literally in the script just asterisks. They're just asterisks. And so you can make them to be whatever you want. And I wanted to know what the original intent was. And so I went and watched it very specifically for that. As far as the rest of it is concerned, I took not a lot from it, because that was his interpretation, that gentleman's interpretation of the role, and we played the role very different, in my opinion. And I thought his performance was wonderful. He's a phenomenal actor, and not something that I felt like I could live up to even if I tried to put that hat on a hat. So I really just had to come from what Julius could do and the toolkit that I'm working with at the moment, and build my guy from there. So yes, it did inform me in the way that I understood what the original intent of the play was, but did I take anything from that to bring it here? Not that I know of. Not that I've tried to it anyway.
It's great. David, please.
You've been in big musicals, Hamilton perhaps the biggest, in terms of not just acclaim, but the number of people in the cast. Here you've got a very tight family on stage. Can you talk a bit about what it's like to be in a play where there are so few characters and they're all in different ways so intimately connected with your character?
So a cast of 4 versus a cast of 30. Talk to us about working with this cast of Primary Trust and the differences. Yeah,
it gets real, in my opinion, it gets real intimate and real fast, because the only stimulus I have to go on is the eyes of the 3 other people, and then every once in a while when I talk to you all and I can see your eyes. But the meat of the show is done looking into the eyes of these other phenomenal actors they're all play pros. They're pros at the whole play thing. And so there were even times where I did not know how a scene should be played, where all I needed to do was look across the table at Jacinia and see her eyes and know where she's headed. And that informed where Kenneth was also needing to go. And so you learn to trust very quickly in a situation like this. And I'm so grateful for these DC legends, but also theatrical legends, acting legends. These people could be on any stage across the country, in any other country. They could be on the West End, they could be on Broadway, and we're very fortunate that they are right here in DC on the Signature Theater stage with me, helping me through this, guiding me through this piece. Craig Wallace is just a master of his craft, and learning from him is like, I'm not a person that despises wisdom. I look at someone who has done this as long as he has and has had the success that he has, and I go, there's something in that sauce.
Yeah.
So what is it that he's doing? What can I learn from this gent? And then Frank Britton, the same. There's just such a heart there that is so open and warm. And so it was so easy for us to become best friends on stage, because when we talk off stage, he is such a lovely person if you've had the opportunity to talk to him. It's an embarrassment of riches for people to play on stage with. And it is very different to do it with 4 people as opposed to 30, because with Hamilton, I could look at 30 different eyes on stage every night and go on a different journey. And with this, there's a trust that just has to happen. You know, with 30 people, if one person is not giving me what I want, I can just move on to the next one. But in this play, all we have is the 4 of us. You know, so, yeah.
That's great. Yes, please.
Speaking of Craig Wallace, it was nice to see him in a non-Shakespearean role.
Yeah.
I wonder if he talked to you about doing Shakespeare anytime.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes, he
have you,
has.
Craig, you and Craig talk Shakespeare?
We have talked Shakespeare in him doing Shakespeare.
Okay.
Now listen. Now let me get my my footing with just a play first,
Right.
and then we'll maybe go back to school and do some Shakespeare. But you know, I won't shirk anything that comes my way. But there is an education that goes along with honoring that material that I think that I need some more study on. I'm not naive enough to think that I could just hop into that and wing it. And so there's the iambic pentameter and all of that stuff. There's a way that this stuff needs to be done on top of putting your heart into it that I did not learn in school, because I was mostly focused on musical theater. That, you know, maybe one day.
I'll see you.
Oh, thank you.
Barbara, and then over to Carl. Yeah.
Yes, I think Hamilton has played a big part of your life, I think, in theater. And I happen to love Hamilton. I've seen it 6 or 7 times. I lose track sometimes. Are you through with Hamilton? I think that maybe you would go on tour with it sometime.
Is Hamilton done for you, do you think?
You know, we never say never.
Right.
We've had conversations about me coming back and at other times, and it wasn't right. The timing wasn't right for everything to sort of like line up, and you never say never. We call Hamilton, Wicked, The Lion King, we call those government gigs because they are always around, and they have a revolving door of people who want to go and come and go and come. And so there's always the option. I will never say never. I will say the kind of shape that it took for me to play Hamilton was something that I built over a year. And then had to maintain and then rebuild after the pandemic, leading up to going back into the show. And then afterwards, I had to rehabilitate myself from doing one specific thing, rapping, to trying to go back to singing, which is my main thing. And I found that to be quite a challenge. And so it would have to be right. I would have to have the right time, or I would have to go in and play Burr, like I always said that I should in the first place. So.
I love it. Yeah.
So are there roles that you would like to play, number 1? And number 2, are there roles that you've done that you'd like to play again?
Dream roles and roles you'd like to go back to.
Yeah, I'll start with Revisit, because that's the most fresh in my mind. I played the leading player in college in Pippin. And especially at that time in my life, you're talking about something that really wore me out. That thing, I felt like I was this close to getting it. And I even had a teacher that came up to me and said, "You were this close to getting it."
Helpful. Yeah.
It was helpful, because it didn't allow me to rest on my laurels.
That's great. That's great.
I've actually had several teachers that have told me many things that have made me go, okay, we got to get to work, and I appreciate it. So leading player is one that now that I'm in this space in my life that I think I would love to get another stab at to see what I can do with it now. As far as things that I haven't done, things that exist, I would love to go play Shakespeare in Romeo and Juliet, excuse me. I think that would be a lot of fun and silly and you know, right up my alley, my comical alley with these giant eyes. And then I would love to do something that is written specifically for me or with me in mind. Yeah, something new that I can put my own stamp on as opposed to stepping into the mold of someone else or trying to recreate the mold of someone else. I've been a part of the creation of many musicals, some that have gone on to do things and some that, didn't make it past that production. And that is a challenge that says, okay, you get to create the source material. You get to be the blueprint and you get to put your stamp on it. And that's a lot of fun.
I love it. And you had a question?
Well, my question was also about the dream role, but would you consider coming back to Signature, please?
Would you come back someday to SIG?
Listen, if they will have me, I've had a wonderful time and I've been treated so well here. This is a wonderful place to work and I've always heard tell of Signature and how great it is to work here. And now that I've experienced it myself, you couldn't keep me from coming back. I will be paying attention to whatever is coming up in the seasons and going, hey, agents, make sure you put my bid in for this role. Oh, yes, if they'll have me,
I love it. Yes, please.
I just saw it in Juliet last weekend in Baltimore. So you playing Shakespeare, is that what
Yeah.
I would love to play Shakespeare, yeah.
And the way, I think you do it great just from the humanism of moving, because they portray Shakespeare as a raging maniac. And we see more kind of really that style.
I thought you were about to call me a raging egomaniac. I was like, God's so real in here so fast.
We can't wait to see your Shakespeare in Anne Juliet. I want to talk specifically about Primary Trust for a bit. For the 3 or 4 folks here in person and for the folks at home who haven't seen it yet, what is this show about? What's the story?
In my opinion, from my point of view, Primary Trust is about a 38-year-old man who has experienced some trauma in his life, and he's had a bit of a failure to launch, a failure to sort of get out into life in the way that the majority of us do, creating a friend group, creating a social life. He's created some coping mechanisms that have served him up until this point in his life, and when those coping mechanisms no longer serve him, he's got to figure out what the next step is.
Yeah.
And so it is a touching, funny at times, sad at times, but ultimately triumphant show about overcoming adversity. A slice of life about overcoming adversity. And so I think it's something that all of us can sort of relate to and see ourselves in. I certainly see myself all over Kenneth. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that impressed me watching it on Tuesday that I hadn't thought about when I was reading it is we're constantly in this play talking about what a small town it is, but the whole play is you meeting people for how do they not know you? Like, tell us who Kenneth is. What makes this guy tick?
What makes him tick? Well, I think, and especially in talks with Taylor Reynolds, our director, Kenneth is an extremely hopeful person, despite the fact that he's gone through some stuff. And isn't that true to life? I mean, we are all people that experience some sadnesses in our lives, and walking down the street, we would never know that the person next to us just had someone pass away or just experienced a car crash or whatever the trauma might be. And they continue on hopefully in this life and can either keep it to themselves or share it in a way that still remains hopeful. And I think that is the core of who Kenneth is that even though he doesn't understand or necessarily know what is coming next, he is hopeful that whatever it is will be the right thing.
So, I mean, I love that. It's a show that could potentially, just from the plot line alone, be a pretty heavy piece, but it's not. There's real warmth to it. Where's the warmth and where's the hope in this story?
Well, the hope is in connection, the thing that we are all sort of searching for in our lives. And in some way or another, at some time or another, we are all just seeking to connect in some way. And I think that's the hope of this play, because Kenneth starts to reach out and to be hopeful and to connect. And when he finds out it's not as scary as it is, good things start to happen.
Yeah.
You know, in the midst of all of the mess that life still brings our way. that we can still connect and be hopeful, and life will roll on, and life will life, as they say nowadays, life be lifing. But we can find our joy and our hope in the eyes of other people and in the connection with other people. And I think that is the thing that makes Kenneth tick.
What a wildly relevant piece, yeah. I mean, this lonely country that we live in.
You did your thing, Eboni Booth.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
You wrote.
But it's not just the writing. There's warmth on that stage between all of you. I know you've talked about the cast, but like, what was this rehearsal room like? How did you can feel the warmth generating from the stage?
Yeah, I think that starts from the top down. Matt, the artistic director, I think chose an incredible director in Taylor Reynolds, because she creates a room that allows for you to try whatever it is that you want to try, and to go in any direction you want to go until we decide that may not be the direction that you go in. And that is in and of itself how you create art.
Yeah.
You do not censor it while it's happening, but you can edit it and mold it and shape it and form it into the thing that you want it to be. And then when you're finished, there is a product there where nothing existed before. And great directors have this really uncanny knack, and I've worked with a few of them. I've worked with a few who are not so great at this specific thing, in creating a safe room. Creating a safe room is, like, for me, how I feel like I get to my best product.
Yeah.
When I can walk into the room and try something that may seem outlandish and out of the box, and then we go, yeah, part of that was great. Let's use half of that. Or I never thought that was the idea, but let's see how that plays with an audience. All right, well, that didn't play exactly like we want it to play. What if we tweak it this way? So it's never no. It's yes and.
Yeah.
And that makes the process collaborative and safe, and I think you come to the best product that way. So Taylor Reynolds, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You talked a little bit about the challenges of the show. Maybe you just answered this question, but what are the joys of this piece? Of doing this show.
I will say the challenge has been a joy.
Okay.
Because what better feeling is there to see a hill, start to climb it, and then realize you're midway to the top, and then see that you're 3/4 of the way to the top. And in a week, we'll have gotten to the top of this mountain by finishing out the production, and then we'll be on the other side of it, and we can look back and we can go, it seemed so insurmountable when we started. It seemed so hard, but we got through it. And what we came out on the other end with is something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
Super proud of. So that the challenge has been a joy. But also just getting to work with, again, I don't want to keep harping on a thing, but getting to work with people like this it's a treat.
Yeah.
It is a treat to get to trust someone in the way that you can look across the table and know that they've got you, and whatever they send to you is going to be interesting and within the world of the play. And it might be new, but it's going to be something that's going to send you both on the journey that you can trust going on.
Absolutely.
And how many times have we been in a situation where we don't trust our coworkers? But I trust my coworkers implicitly on this, and that is a joy.
I love that. I love that. David, please.
You mentioned earlier that your ambition was to be in all parts of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering about that. Are you talking about film? Have you done film? Or are there other aspects of entertainment you want to get into?
When you say all aspects of entertainment, what do you mean by that? And also, have you done any film?
Yes, so I do mean film, I mean television, I mean recording music, and I've done quite a few of these things. I've been on television several times. I got to be the person with the clipboard who was too busy to talk to the detective in Law and Order.
The real dream role.
The real dream role, but a rite of passage for any New York actor to say they've been on Law and Order.
Yep.
I was walking through that hall. I don't have time. I have a clipboard that I need to peruse, but I'll tell you what I know. I've gotten to play a doctor on TV in Sesame Street.
Yes.
Like rites of passage that I think are that have been really meaningful to me. And I would love to be in a movie or 6. Right now I have a pilot that we are shopping to different places. It's going to be at the Montclair Film Festival here very soon in New Jersey, that I star in and have produced. And so I'm slowly but surely weaving my web into all of these different facets of the entertainment business, and in hopes that some or all of them will hit, but if not, that at least I can say that I dabbled. Yeah.
Please.
Have you directed?
Have you directed?
Only in college. I took directing in college as a course. It is something that is on my mind. I feel like I've got a few more lessons to learn before I can start trying to teach them to other people in a situation like this. But it's definitely on the docket.
That's great.
It's on the docket.
Judith.
Mine was going to be the same
Oh,
question.
same
about
question.
directing.
What are the odds? And you also teach.
I do.
How does your work as a teacher impact you as an artist and as a human?
Yeah. Well, I think it's because so many people have poured into me, including Craig in this production, that it's important to pass on what I know and make someone else's journey easier. What's the point in hoarding knowledge? Why not share it? And I've had the opportunity to pass on some of what I know to, even while I was in college, I taught as an adjunct professor, I taught some dance classes as an adjunct professor, and then moving on, I've done lots of master classes and taught, I have some private students and things of that nature. It's just, it's an awesome way to both hone my skills as a teacher, as well as pass on what I know. And I've seen some of my students succeed, and so it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's great. And should there be any aspiring young artists watching at home, what advice do you have for them?
Well, the first thing would, 2 or 3 things. The first is try everything, because you will never know what random thing that you enjoy will land you in a gig. I learned how to twirl rifles when I was in high school as a part of the military, I don't even know what to call it, ROTC. Yeah. And when I went away to college and began to perform in shows, I booked a summer gig at Music Theater of Wichita in Annie Get Your Gun as the main rifle twirler.
Yeah.
because that was a skill that I had, just something that I wanted to learn in high school. And then one of my national tours was Xanadu the Musical. My family roller skates religiously. We go to the roller skating rink. My nephews now go, but we went all the time growing up, so I'm a great roller skater. And so when I went into that audition for Xanadu, I was heads and tails over everybody else on skates. Like I was doing tricks and spinning around the room, going backwards. And as I was roller skating, I saw the people behind the table go, Julius.
Yep.
And so I know I owe my family 10% of that gig. So try anything, because whatever thing that you love might end up being the thing that someone goes, we need that skill. 2 is, there's so much rejection in this business. Let no be fuel for the fire. You can hear no, and no can mean I'm terrible, I will never book this role, I am not right for it. Or you can hear no as not right now, something about your performance needs tweaking because you didn't quite hit it this time, and there's stuff to improve on. And as long as you go back to the drawing board and continue to reassess what it is that you are missing, you will eventually land on the thing that books you the gig. So don't let no be no. Let no be fuel for the fire. And lastly, travel, because it is the best experience to go see how other people live. And it will be the first thing that opens your eyes to the differences of how to play different characters just based on who you see walking down the street differently in different countries.
Yeah.
It is a magical thing that opened my eyes when I walked through Sicily and saw how they live life. Same concept, but so different. And it's so informative, so travel.
I love it. You're on that stage, or you're on any show that you're in. How does it feed you? How does performing feed your soul? What does it give you?
Well, I find that I need it. It's in high school, I think it was a way for me to not be Julius, because high school was such a tough time for me. It was such a hard 4 years of my life, just coming to terms with, growing up and all the rough things. And I was bullied so much, just like Kenneth, and it was an escape for me at that time. And so I needed it at that point in my life as an escape. Once I got into college, I needed it as this thing that gave me purpose. What am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to be? How am I going to live and make a living? And so in college, it became a thing of I needed to have a goal to move towards. And now at this point in my life, I need it as my form of expression of the mark that I'm going to leave on this world. I need it as my legacy. To quote a show that no one's ever heard of. I need it as my legacy. And so it has been so many things to me in my life. And in each different facet of my life, it's been something different.
I love it. Thank you for sharing yourself with us today and on that stage. We look forward to having you back at Signature again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was excellent. Thank you for that.
Of course.